Welcome to pattern cutting for contour design. We have a bias modelled block on a half scale mannequin. I've made the block, folded in the back centre seam and pinned it along the dummy down the centre back, keeping that accurate. I'm going to mark with some stickers the points that we need to go through to create contoured seaming. So we have the bust point. This is at the end of the dart to form the bust shaping. We have the top of the waist dart along the waistline. We have the bottom of the waist dart. We have the side seam at the waistline. I've drawn on the hip line for reference. It goes there. And then I'm going to do a mid hip as well, because there's quite a curve over the female shaped mannequin's hip. So I'll do that on the other side as well. When you're doing your mannequin, you don't necessarily need to use these stickers, they're for demonstration purposes, so it makes it easier to see. And also as a reminder which points you need to go through. And you have the hip line and the mid hip. I'm also I'll mark the back ones just so you can see where those ones would be too. So the bottom of the dart, top of the dart at the waist, the bottom of the shoulder dart there, that forms the shaping over the shoulder blade. So before you start doing this on your made up toile, it's probably best to have a little play on the sketches, have a little go at working out where you would want your seam lines, following those points. So this one I've done a curved line, this one I've done a more geometric line. What you have to remember is the stronger the corner, the harder it will be to sew. So the smaller the corner or the smaller of the curve, the harder it will be to construct. So I'd advise to being quite gentle with your curves to begin with. So I think I'll choose something like this. I possibly won't stick to it, but I think I'll go for something along these lines, following these points. So a good thing to use is actually a pencil. You can use marking tape, but I would use an HB or a higher B pencil. Use rubber. You can actually rub out on a mannequin, so it's a good way to use, but for demonstration purposes so you can see it, I'm going to use a Sharpie marker pen. So roughly following this guide, I'm going to turn this more towards me, so it goes from the mid shoulder line. I'll probably just do a dotted line to start with, so it's not quite as stark. So I'm coming across, following the contours. I'm going to shape this over the bust area and down through the bust point. So we can mark these off as we go through them. So that one's covered. And then this comes down to the side seam at the waistline. This technique uses trial and error. Have a go and then we'll see how it forms over the body. So that one goes from the waistline and then it's going to come down through the bottom of. So I'm going to follow a curve. I'm actually going to go a little bit into the back. I'm going to go off piste a little bit from the drawing because it's a sharp curve. I'm going to come through that point there and then curve it back round to the hemline. Perhaps round at the side seam. Yeah, that's that one. So that's seam line number one. I'm just going to fill that in a little bit so it's a bit stronger and we don't get confused with the others. The accuracy of the seam line will be neatened up when we actually cut it off the dummy. follow that round. So even if you go a little bit wrong, you can use your cutting to neaten up. So this is quite an experimental process, but it's a really good way to learn the contours of the body. It can be any size, any shape. It's just looking at the mounds and hollows on any body shape, male, female, or any size. So the next line is going to come from the side seam. So instead of coming straight across, I'm going to go a little bit down like that, so it comes up. I'll do a little bit tighter this time through this bust point there. Quick check on my drawing. And I'm going to come round to the waist seam here. The waist dart, sorry, top of the waist dart. That goes there. And then bring it across the torso. Through the bottom of the waist dart and curve it round to the hem. That's our second line. And then third line, I'm going to come under the bust because that would create quite a nice shaping there. And at this point, once you've done your toile, you may want to, if you want a really contoured design, you may want to take it in a little bit under the bust. I'm going to curve it around. So this is your starting shaping. So this will be remade into a toile with these seams. And then we'd work on how we'd want to adjust the shape to make it an even more contoured fit. This is very good for doing very contoured evening dresses or even sportswear or corsetry. It's a good one for corsetry too. So there we have our three lines. So what we need now is we need to remember where these pieces go because they don't look like a conventional pattern shape of a garment. So what we need to do, first things first, number them. I'm going to mark the middle one, number 1, the upper one, number 2, this one, number 3. Now this is where we have to be careful because this could run into a different shape at the side, so that could actually be number 2 as well if it comes around to the side. So I'll leave that area there, and then that would be number 4. I'll stick to the side seam on this side. That's our numbered sections. The next reference would be notches. Notches are very important for lining up your pieces. And I'll stick to, if we go through the contour point, so go through the bust point, so do your notch at 90 degrees to the line, do a single one there. Going to go to the waist, and I'll do a single one there too. So that goes across that seam. I'll come across here and I'll do a double notch there. So I have to make each of the seam lines different. So we've got 1, 2, and then a double. The next one, I will do a single one at the bust again. This time I'm going to do a double one so it looks different to the other side. So I'll do a double notch there and I'll just trim up that line. So these markers are going to make it easier to sew up, and I'm going to do a single one on this one here. And the next line, I will start with a double here. Bring that around and do a double there as well. So this one, I haven't gone through that yet, but I think we'll probably keep to having a side seam on that side, and then we don't have to worry about these because we've got a side seam, but we could carry those lines on into the next panel at the back. But I'm just going to stick to the front for now, and we'll come back to doing the back once we've had a go at testing this. So that is our bodice, numbered, notched. The other thing we need is grain line. Mustn't forget the grain line. So once we've taken these pieces off, it's quite hard to work out the grain line. So visually, I'm going to use my Pattern Master, and the 45-degree line, I'm going to visually put that along the centre front and very quickly mark out the grain line on each piece. So the bias is 45 degrees to the centre front. So I've got one on there, and I've got one on there. So that one has one, so I just need to work out one for the top. So again, visually down the centre front. If you mark on your toile, if you mark out the centre front first, that would help with the grain line. There, so we have our grain lines on those, and I'll just put one on there. So again, on the side seam, you could use your 45-degree line and follow the side seam down and mark out your grain line on piece number 4. So if we follow those steps, we will come out with flat pattern pieces that contour around the body and give a very flattering shape and style, quite unconventional, and a lovely asymmetric detailing. Now we've done this process, what we would do if we wanted to carry on the back, we would carry on through the back. What you must do is make sure that this is accurate down the centre back, and once you've got all your seam lines on, we would unpin the garment. So unpin this from the mannequin, once you've unpinned this from the mannequin, we would cut along our seam lines. So using some sharp shears, cut along the seam lines, and that should create flat pattern pieces. If you've gone along the back as well, what you would need to do is repin the back closed. If you've not got a centre back seam, you would need to repin that closed, and then that will form a centre back panel as your pattern piece. So that concludes how we draw onto the modelled bias block, our contoured seaming. The next stage would be to trace this off onto a pattern piece. Please watch the next video for that process.